Murphy, Schiller & Wilkes is formed with a simple purpose in mind, serving as the one-stop shop for the legal needs of developers, lenders, and others in the commercial real estate industry. Based in Newark, the firm's attorneys represent clients in the most complex real estate transactions and land development proceedings, as well as property taxation, environmental and real estate litigation matters, and in the acquisition, sale, and leasing of all real estate asset types throughout the country. Their attorneys have broad private and public sector experience coming from top national law firms and high-level governmental positions. Through the development of individualized client-focused strategies, their team works tirelessly to create a blueprint for success and advance their clients' interests in every matter. To learn more, head to murphyllp.com or give them a call at 973-877-6984.
Driving on this road feels like forever.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Cam. We are here at the Foreign Objects Nerve Center with Jordan Freed, recording our first ever episode in New York. So there's a reason why we're here. We're not, we're going to give them a little plug for letting us use the space, but we had to come here because you work here.
Correct.
So welcome. So first off, welcome, getting me out of my home state, out of my comfort zone, I guess. But that's a big thing, getting out of your comfort zone.
Oh, definitely. I actually grew up on the border of New York and New Jersey my whole life, so I feel like I've always straddled both sides of it. I started out being born in Suffolk, New York, which is right on the border of Mahwah, and then I ended up living in Warwick, New York for most of my life, which is on the border of Vernon.
That's true, yes. Yeah.
And now I live in Rutherford, New Jersey, which you could basically see New York City from there.
Yeah. Yes, somebody you got a delivery now too. So,
special delivery.
Yeah, special delivery. So, all right. So you're not from Jersey originally, but we're not gonna hold that against you at all. So you're welcome.
I'm a Jersey convert.
I know. Yeah.
I used to definitely feel a little elitist as a New Yorker, but I'm currently dating somebody from Jersey.
Right. Smart
and
move.
I've been living in Jersey. On and off for 4 years now. Yeah. So I've learned to love it. There's a lot of parts of Jersey. And
that's true.
Yeah, where I'm from in New York, it's basically the same as how it is in Jersey, like very rural areas. Yeah. And some are a little bit more suburban. Like Rutherford's definitely more suburban than I'm used to. So
yeah, and you said that's where you live now, right?
Yeah.
And we'll do this right now. Like, so what's your favorite part about living full time in Jersey over the last several years? Because we're big fans of Jersey on this show. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, yeah. I'd say there's so many things going on across the state. I think as somebody who grew up in New York, at least when I grew up, I was in Warwick, New York, which there wasn't a lot going on. Like, there was definitely more than like a smaller town.
Yeah.
But there were 11,000 people when I grew up.
We got the drive-in movie theater there.
Exactly.
Couple wineries, but if you're a kid, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, for sure. But just as I've been in Jersey, like, I'm learning to love, like, I ran a show in Trenton for 2 years.
Yeah.
I found a lot of great arts events in Central Jersey that are going on. Like, every time I go to Jersey City, it's a great time, and like, it's a fun show, or it's a fun place, or it's a great arts experience. I hang out at this place, Prototype Patterson, sometimes. That they have great art shows and like musicians and comedy shows and open mics and poetry shows and dancing stuff. And it's just like, that's the stuff I like about Jersey that I feel like New York, a lot of people just go down to New York City, or I just didn't know about it, I guess, when I was in New York. But people in Jersey definitely have a lot going on. There's so many self-sustaining cities, like New Brunswick has a great art scene. Montclair has a great art scene. Union City has a great art scene. Like, there's so much popping up all over.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we should basically tell people like what you actually do too, because this is very early on in the episode, so they probably don't know. So you're talking a lot about like the art scene and different things. So let's kind of give them broad strokes, because we're obviously going to like dive into a lot of these things in more detail as we kind of progress through this episode. But what are some of like the highlights of Jordan Freed? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm a comedian at heart, for sure. I am currently a member of the comedy group Night Hump. and we operate L&H Studios production company, where we produce comedy shows and films and podcasts in general. And yeah, I've been doing comedy for 10 years now. And I've also like studied film and work in the film industry. And I'm a SAG AFTRA actor as well. Yeah. So
What's the second thing you said? SAG AFTRA?
yeah,
What
it's
is
like
that?
it's just the actors union in America,
okay.
basically. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think it covers like radio as well and like audiobooks and stuff
Gotcha.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So I love acting. I love film. But if I could do anything, I would probably just do stand up. Like like I love doing stand up. You know, if people wanted to see me and like 500 people wanted to pay to buy tickets every night, I would be like, fuck yeah, let's do that. Like that is the way of life that I would want to do.
Yeah.
And like work a fuck ton, like when I don't have family stuff to do the family stuff, and then enjoy my time on stage.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Yeah.
So you said 10 years you've been doing stand-up, and I think you told me off mic or on mic now, I forget, when you were 17. So, like, that's pretty early, I would imagine, for some people to get into something like that. So, like, what was it that initially drew you to stand-up comedy and trying to go down that path as a kid, basically?
Yeah, like I think growing up as a Jew in America, like you're kind of like around
Funny
comedic
people.
art.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
and
yeah.
like funny things. Like there's value in the Jewish world to be funny, and like we're storytellers in Jewish communities, also Italian communities. I don't want to disregard my mom's family.
Of course, there's plenty of storytellers out there.
Yeah. All cultures have storytellers,
Yeah.
but like I was definitely like more put on the defensive in my life for being Jewish, and like had to defend myself from people with humor,
Yeah.
and like diffuse situations with humor more so.
Right.
Because of being Jewish. Yeah, so like I've always like told jokes as like oh, it's just like we just tell jokes, like ha ha ha. But then also like as I got older, like that was definitely the way that I had any social currency. It would be like, oh, who's that weird kid? Oh, like you just made a joke. Oh, cool, okay, whatever. Like, you know, like I wasn't great at sports. I wasn't doing this, but I would do like arts organizations and stuff like that. And
Right.
like eventually, once I realized, like, oh, all you have to do stand-up is do stand-up, then I started doing it, did it for my school's talent show.
Okay.
Did not make it sophomore year when I auditioned, forgot all of my jokes, just
Nice.
started improving it, which was terrible. And then the second year, made my school's talent show. They banned me from saying one joke, and then the rest were okay. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. I started going to open mics that summer with my friend Sean Houlihan, who was also like trying out stand-up at talent shows. We started going to this bar actually in Central Valley by the Woodbury Commons, which is like right over here, at CV's Hideaway, which is now called A Better Place. And like that's where I started going every other Thursday to do stand-up.
Yeah.
And that's when I like really started living the life, so to speak, like being a 17-year-old in the bars.
Right.
And like trying to get their attention because like
Yeah.
everybody wanted to take a smoke break when I came up. They're like, who the fuck is this kid? Like, he's just another one of those kids who tries stand-up.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So were there, because obviously like you could be like funny, but then I feel like stand-ups are like a different kind of funny. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or is it like it's like harder to be funny as a stand-up than just being like us, you and I having a conversation, you telling a joke and me laughing, rather than like having a room full of people like you were describing before and being like, here's a joke, like, oh my God, they didn't laugh, or they laughed at this one, or you know, that kind of stuff. So were there like, did you go and watch like other stand-ups before you started doing it, or was it just kind of like you just jumped in and you're like, I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna start telling jokes, make people laugh?
So, in true fashion of a 7th grader of my time, I was very low on money. So I would go onto iTunes with my iPod at the time, and I would look for like the cheapest long songs on iTunes. And what were the cheapest long songs? They were Dane Cook comedy sets.
Yeah.
So I would start listening to like Dane Cook comedy in 7th grade with my friends, and I started to look further. Zach Galifianakis Live at the Purple Onion was on Netflix at the time, like early Netflix
one where he
streaming.
plays the piano.
Yeah, and he's getting just like hammered, but like he's just going through and just killing.
Yeah,
and it's just like capturing just a beautiful night. You're like, how did they videotape this? Like, how did they get it so perfect that like it just feels so real? And it's like he must be the real thing, you know, if you get that type of footage. So I started watching all of that. Watched like Carlin stuff, would watch like Chris Rock when it would come on TV, would watch whatever would come on TV comedy wise, started just like watching Comedy Central when I would get home from school, and then that would just evolve to watching Comedy Central all the time. And then from there I started to write jokes once I started to think, oh, maybe I could do this. That would be kind of cool. Started to get interested in film around sophomore year of high school as well. So I think that was when it started to look as though I was going to go into the industry in that way, and go to a college for that.
Right.
So that was also a good addition to the comedy stuff. Like my parents knew that I could never be just a comedian. Like you don't make money as a comedian, unless you like go viral or something, or you've been on like one of the late night shows or something of that nature. But yeah, so I learned the craft as well for filmmaking so that I can do random jobs. I've been an editor for people. I've been a videographer for people. I've worked as a PA. I've done post-production for reality shows. Kind of bounced around the industry since graduating.
Like a jack of all trades, basically, kind of thing.
Trying to be,
Right.
If I'm going to direct films one day, you kind of have to do all the jobs,
like
or else
learn
you
how
don't
they all
understand
work. Right. Yeah.
100%.
So, and this beer is pretty good.
Oh, nice. You had the Hell's Lager, the
Hell's
Die
Lager.
Hertz machine.
Yeah. All right. So going through like this stand-up thing, 'cause I saw you at Annabella's House of Mozzarella, which I just love to say. And where's
It
that
literally
exactly?
sounds like it's making fun of Italian
Literally.
people.
Yeah. When I texted it to my mom, she was like, "What the hell is that?" And I was like, "It's not anything weird. It's a place." Is that Garfield?
It's East Rutherford.
East
so
Rutherford.
it's on Patterson Plank, right on the same road as the Meadowlands, and
That's
also American Dream.
Yeah, classic place.
And in the opposite direction is kind of our sister brewery, Bolero Snort.
Okay.
Shout out Bolero Snort. We
'Cause
brew
you
our
said that
beer
there's,
down there
like,
sometimes.
Yeah, like there's a connection between this place and there, right?
Yeah, I think the ownership is somewhat shared or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But they make amazing beers that are so different than Foreign Objects. So it's like very cool to like have those two brands and be like loosely associated with them, but like very associated with Foreign Objects right now as the bar manager.
Right. Yeah. All right. So because you were the MC that night, so you like do that I know at Annabella's, but at other places too?
Yeah, so over the years, I've produced a lot of comedy shows, and I've realized how much the host really sets the stage, and if there's not a good host, it kind of ruins everything, you know?
That's true.
And you can really like let the show get out of hand if the host doesn't know what they're doing. So I always try to host shows that...
I almost overpoured that, but that's like... perfect. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, it's all good. I always forget that we're doing video. So.
Yeah. So people can see that I just like almost overflowed my beer, which would have been so embarrassing. But I'm a pro, so I'm sorry. Keep going.
It's all good. We have towels here.
Thank God.
But yeah, over the years, I've thought of that as a way to kind of brand myself as well. Like, I've never been really a headliner up until this point, so... hosting is a way that you could be kind of a starting comic and kind of cut your teeth and like prove yourself. Like if you're an opener comic and a hosting comic that could get the first laughs of the day, then you're doing your job.
Right.
You know, the job of the host is to get the crowd laughing. If it's a big crowd, get everybody to laugh once. If it's a small crowd, just get one laugh and just get the person up, you know?
Yeah, right.
But like you learn these tricks of the trade along the way. Like I've hosted a show a long time ago. The first one I ever produced was at the Sterling Ridge, like Tuxedo Ridge ski place that's on like 17, I think, or 17A maybe. And they were just doing like events there at this like ski lodge for a little bit. And I decided to book some comics there. And like, maybe sold a couple tickets. I don't even know if we sold tickets. It was like my first time producing. But then I went to New Orleans and started producing a show there called The Walk Up with my friend Ash Diggs. And then we started like hosting this wild show with like drunk college kids and like all of this nonsense. And then when I came home from that, I did a show called Good Host, Bad Host with Tim Barge, who was like a New Paltz comic who lives in Brooklyn now. And that show was very fun. It was in a small venue called Milkweed.
Okay.
And then from there, I started hosting Circuit Break at Rhino Comedy in Suffern, which was a sketch variety show, which was like a wild ordeal where we would write all of the sketches, we would book comics, we would have a musical guest, we would have video components.
Wow.
And like I was sometimes doing that. My producing partners, Rena Ezra and Brendan O'Brien, were doing some of the other stuff, but we were literally running the board, also doing the projector, also hosting and also acting and also like producing and directing other people stage manager wise.
Yeah.
And that was like probably one of the most fun shows that we've ever had and like done on a regular basis. And then I was hosting the late night hump show down at NJ Weedman's joint in Trenton, New Jersey. Okay. So this is when I really jumped into the New Jersey scene. Yeah. Because I kind of saw that they had an open mic on the third Saturday of the month. And I reached out and I was like, oh, like you guys are the only weed spot. Because this was when weed was still illegal in New Jersey. Yeah. And I was like, hey, like, can we have a booked show, like, where you actually pay the comics? Like, you guys sell weed, so, like, you must have some kind of money there, you know, to pay comics. Like, every venue I go to doesn't have money. And I'm like, yo, the perfect thing. A weed joint that's trying to literally, like,
I feel like it would
pay
almost
people.
make it easier to get people to laugh, too, at something like that, for the most part.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love weed rooms. Like, some people don't get it because they're not, like, hardcore stoners, but I'm a hardcore stoner. So, like, I know that if people are, like, giggling in the corner, that's like good. Like that's not a bad thing. Right, yeah, but some people don't hear audio laughs and they're like, whoa, what's up? They didn't like that. And it's like, nah, bro, they just hit the vape pen like 7 times. They're having the best time of their life. But yeah, I did that show for a long time, but Trenton was kind of far away for me. So then...
and you were living where when you did
I was living in Rutherford still, yeah.
All right.
And then...
Trenton is a little bit far for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also, after college, I got like... connected with this booker in the city. So right when I got out of college, I was hosting shows at Eastville Comedy Club, like when it was in the East Village, like doing these 6 p.m. shows that like he would book way too many comics and I'd have to like shuffle through like 30 comics in an hour show before like the real comics came on. Yeah. So like I was doing those shows for like 6 months maybe after college, 7 months after college. And that also was like a big start of my hosting because like he was like, yeah, you want to work the door, you want to host, you want to do that, that's how you get paid. Like if you're coming from like upstate New York and like coming down here, like that's the only way you get paid is if you like run the door for me because I want to stay in Long Island and not come into here. Right. And like deal with these comics and also host because like the host has to stay the whole time and all the comics leave and go do other sets. So that's when I started to get paid for comedy on a regular basis and like definitely learned a lot of lessons, you know, of the hardcore like New York scene. But it's like now I feel very comfortable. Like I don't go to New York a lot just because like since the pandemic, I'm not in at a lot of those clubs. Right. But whenever I do go on like indie shows in New York, like I'm like, fuck yeah, like I'm at home. Like this is very easy. Like I was doing this right after college.
Right, exactly. So going back to the stuff in Jersey, so like what places are you consistently at in Jersey if people are like interested in going to see a show? We said Annabella's.
Annabella's House of Mozzarella is my baby right now. And you could check out those shows by going to lnhstudios.com/shows. And I love those because I book 3 or 4 comics. They're usually some of my favorite comics. They're usually people who are trying to stretch a 10-minute set to a 30 or 40-minute set in their like repertoire. So like I like to give 3 or 4 people, 20-minute sets. And everybody's been very good so far. And the turnouts have been very fun, and it's like very good food there, very good drinks. Like they have a lot of craft brews from local New Jersey places on tap.
Yeah.
And
I think I had a Bolero when I came to that show.
Oh yeah.
That's what they had in cans and stuff. So
yeah. And I host that show, so I enjoy hosting it. I enjoy connecting with the audience a little bit and like warming people up and like making my comics who I really like and I'm bringing to town, like make sure they have a warm welcome before they come up and like make sure they're respected and like shit doesn't go down, you know? But outside of that, I'm doing a lot of indie shows. Like by the time this comes out, I'll probably be back at Levity Live doing a show in the VIP room. I'm doing one February 11th, which is retroactive for when this came out, but I'm assuming it went well. But I book shows anywhere people book me. So like sometimes I'm down in New Brunswick, sometimes I'm up in like Warwick, sometimes I'm in Jersey City, sometimes I'm down in Trenton area. It really depends on what show I haven't been on in a while and like what's far away from things.
Right. I do think that's like one thing with Jersey. Like there's obviously like, you know, like venues like in Morristown we have the MPAC and they do like comedians come through there and they do the Manhattan Comedy Night thing where they have comedians come in and they do like a whole show just like what you're talking about. But I do think that's one of the things that like the state, and maybe I'm wrong, overall, it's like sometimes hard to find like comedy clubs or like places where there is stand-up comedy, just because it's not like a big thing. Like, you know, in the city you obviously have like dedicated, like this is a comedy club, you know? Like I think in Jersey, like I know that they exist, but I couldn't tell you one off the top of my head. Definitely.
There are a few comedy clubs, but they're mostly like, with the exception of like I think Stress Factory.
Yeah,
maybe.
Stress Factory is the one I couldn't.
I think that one might be kind of indie, or he has a second one maybe. But like most of them are like tied to Helium and like other clubs. Okay. So like a lot of them don't book necessarily locals. A lot of the indie shows that are produced by comics are some of the better shows, at least like with Jersey comics sometimes. You know, like there's a lot of shows going on down the shore. There's a lot of shows going on in New Brunswick. Yep. It's just a lot going on. I'm trying to think like when this comes out, what's going to be going on specifically. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of great comedians, you know? Yeah. And I think like one of the hardest parts for me is like Jersey is a very compact state, you know? Right. And like comedians are trying to eat, you know? But the way that like promotion works best is if like people spread themselves out all over, you know? And like if you do one show in North Jersey that's like Sussex County, then like do a show at the Jersey Shore, then do a show in Westchester, New York, then do a show in Brooklyn, then do a show in Queens, then do a show in Warwick. And it's like, that's definitely how comedy works best, because like when I do the Annabella show, even sometimes it's too many times in the same place, too close together. Right, exactly. You know? Yeah. But I like that show because it's in my backyard. Yeah, right. And it's like rolling out of bed to go to the show. And I feel like it's one of those things too, like the more reps you put in, like with anything really, the more reps you put in, the more jokes you tell, the more times you're on stage, I think that just continues to help kind of advance what you're doing, I would imagine. Oh, definitely. Yeah. That was one of the hardest things about the pandemic was I wasn't going out a lot. So when I came back from it, I was not comfortable on stage. And it's like tough to go out. Like you feel exposed. Like it's like you're a professional athlete out of shape, like seen naked on the beach. You know, that's how you feel when you're a stand-up comedian who hasn't been on stage enough. You really worry about yourself and you feel exposed. You feel like somebody caught you naked and they weren't supposed to be looking at you, you know? Right. Because you want to be your best and you want to be as funny as possible. And it's like just now am I feeling like I'm getting out of the rut of the pandemic and I feel great about my sets. And I'm like, wow, this is stuff that I'm proud of. Like, this is stuff I want to build into a headliner set. This is stuff that I want to possibly put in an album. But like during the pandemic, everything just felt so generic because like you weren't getting out and like actually talking to people. Like there wasn't anything to talk about besides the pandemic and like people's conspiracy theories. And it was just like, I feel like I'm just a stoner on a soapbox right now and I am not doing anything else. But now we're back to normal life. There's normal family occurrences. There's normal people occurrences, which is where a lot of stand-up comes from for sure, is like interpersonal connections and like things you notice about the world around you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're gonna do one more question before we take our first break, just because I know I gotta reset the camera. But you talk like we're gonna get into the other stuff that you do in a second segment, but talking about taking like, you know, like you said before, like a 10-minute set to a 15 or a 20-minute set. Like I feel like people that are not in that world just are like, okay, like what's the big deal? But I feel like that's like a big thing for comedians, right?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people think, or at least in the past, you needed to have your 5-minute set that either got you in at a club for your audition or got you on late night television. That's not to say I don't have a 5-minute set that I pull out when I'm doing the 5-minute set audition type things, but you can't really make money off of a 5-minute set anymore. You could definitely become viral on TikTok, but good luck like turning that into monetization in some kind of a way.
Right.
The way that people get paid is by headlining and like having 30 minutes to an hour that they can go tour on their own and people will spread the word. Wow, this was a great show. Wow, let me take pictures with you afterwards. Let me spread the word about this. And that is where I definitely needed to put my focus. Like being 10 years in, you feel stagnant sometimes and you're like, what's going on with my career? Like I'm still doing similar shows that I did 5 years ago, you know, but you have to realize it is not like a short game. It's a long game where there are ebbs and flows and you go through different periods of inspiration. You go through different life things that deter you from the art. But if you want to be an artist, you have to create the art. Yeah. So I really want to put out something that is an album with my name on it. Definitely going to be thinking about that a lot more by the time this comes out. Yeah. And I definitely have like the 40 minutes to an hour in my repertoire. It's just finding 40 minutes to an hour that is good enough and confident enough and tested enough, which to jump yourself up to a headliner, it's tough to start getting those shows because like I've been getting offered the 10 to 15 minute sets for literally 9 years, you know, and I still get offered the 10 to 15 minute sets. Right. So in order to become a headliner, you have to do it once, and then people will start to notice, and they'll be like, oh, wow, he did a headliner set? Oh, was it good? Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's like when I would do NJ Weedman's joint, it was out in Trenton, and I was booking sometimes North Jersey comics, sometimes New York City comics, and they would bail on me last minute. And it's like I was getting them money to get paid. I was paying them in weed and stuff like that, and they're blowing me off. And I'm like, what do I have to do to get somebody to show up on a Wednesday night in the pandemic when there's literally no paid gigs, you know? Yeah. But I had to fill up time on some of those days because people came to watch comedy. And like, if somebody comes to watch comedy and they're not comedians there, you got to do it. So I was definitely not ready at the time to do 40 minutes to an hour, but I did 40 minutes to an hour one night. So that was kind of my first time doing a long set that was that long. Right. And one time in college, I think I did like a 30-minute set. And then one time at a charity fundraiser, I think I did a 30-minute set. But it's not until now that I feel more confident that I could do a 30-minute set with actually good stories and good material and like different material that sets me apart. Yeah, for sure. Love that. All right, so we're going to take our first and only break, actually, of this episode. So this is going to be a two-parter. So this is the Greens from the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Hamm. We're here with Jordan Freed. We'll be right back. The Mayo Performing Arts Center is the heart of arts and entertainment in Morristown, New Jersey. MPAC presents over 200 events annually and is home to an innovative children's arts education program. To see MPAC's upcoming schedule of world-class concerts, stand-up comedy, family shows, and more, head to mayoarts.org or just click the link in our show notes. Bored of going to the same park? Want to try a new local adventure? Well, then check out njspots.com, your home for finding a new spot to discover right here in New Jersey. With dozens of maps to check out, local hiking spots, family-friendly places, and seasonal suggestions, NJ Spots is waiting for you to find somewhere new to explore. That's njspots.com.
All right, we're back for our second segment of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We're here with Jordan Freed. So in the first segment, we learned basically all about your stand-up comic background and what you've done throughout so far your 10-year career doing that. But I know that there's like way more stuff to you. So one of the things you mentioned was the late night hump stuff. So can we talk a little bit about like what that is and like the types of things that you guys do and who's involved and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So we started producing during that circuit break show that we did back before the pandemic at Rhino Comedy, and that was Rena Ezra and Brendan O'Brien, who are also coincidentally my roommates at this point in history. And we were producing during the pandemic and have just kept it up. Brendan O'Brien and I directed a film called Beware the Horn that was about a film school graduate who was played by me, who stumbles upon an improv troupe that he thinks is a cult.
Okay.
And we put that on YouTube during the pandemic. We're actually coming up on the 2-year anniversary this next week. So that was like the first thing that we released as LNH Studios. And then since then, we released a short film over the pandemic called Knock that I directed. That was a short comedy film that won the audience award at the Cannabis Culture Film Festival.
Cool.
It's a very stonery film for sure.
Yeah.
And that's now available on our YouTube. So you can watch my feature film and my short film on LNH Studios, Late Night Humps, YouTube. If you search either of those together, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And then right now we're actually finishing up, as this comes out, the tour of 100 Words, which was directed by Brendan O'Brien and starred Rena Ezra. And all three of us were producers on this film. And it is screening at the Garden State Film Festival at Asbury Lanes.
Oh, cool.
In Asbury Park.
I gotta go to that.
Yeah, it's on the last day of the festival. Should be a really fun afternoon screening.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like networking events that we're probably going to be popping around. So if you guys see Brendan O'Brien or Rena Ezra, say hey. They're friendly people. I'll probably be popping around a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're getting the press passes or the director's passes.
Right, of course.
I got kicked off the boat for this one.
I feel like I can get a press pass for that. I should. I mean, I go down to Asbury Park like once a month. I'm down there like all the time. I'm going down, what did you say? Or no, I'm going down in February.
It's March 24th to 26th, I think, or 22nd to 26th. And we're screening on March 26th. Which is awesome because it's also the day after an Annabella's show,
Nice.
March 25th. We have a show. I have not booked the comics yet for that one because comics are very flaky. So I'm trying to find people a little bit closer to that show.
Yeah.
But it's just a lot going on in Jersey, and it's just fun to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But the film stuff is something that, like, Brendan is like a diehard writer. He has like 25 scripts. Now, I might be exaggerating 25, but he has a lot of scripts on his computer, stored away that could be made and like sold at like any point. And like I write a bunch of scripts, Rena writes a bunch of scripts, and then we all improv together. And like they are fantastic improvisers. And like Brendan teaches improv classes to kids. And like Rena has a day job as well that's kind of outside of that. She does like PR stuff outside of it and is like working 2 full-time jobs at once, kind of.
I get
like
that. I feel that
fitting
in my
in.
heart.
So they're all killing it, and it's like we just work really well together, and we all kind of bring something different to the table. We all learned improv from different places. So like as improvisers, it's very fun. We do our trademark interdimensional improv show a lot of times at the Westchester Collaborative Theater in Ossining, New York, where we take people through space and time and realities as one consciousness. And bring people through some interesting long form scenes. And we perform with like Blind Tiger out there. So one of the things I love about Jersey is it's literally so close to so many other things. Like never since I've lived in Jersey have I. It's like my brother lives in DC and I could drive down to there if I had to. Like I could drive over to Philly if I have to. I could drive to Brooklyn if I have to. I could drive to the Hamptons if I really had to. I could drive to Kingston, New York if I really had to. But Jersey's beautiful, so I don't try to drive out too much. I try to stay in it as much as possible.
Nice.
Like, even I should honestly probably be hustling in New York City, doing like open mics all the time and doing shows in New York every day, but it's like you could get good stage time in New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
You know, like on Thursday nights, I do sets at City Lounge, which is a 10-minute or less drive from my house.
Right,
You know,
perfect.
Wednesday nights, I do sets at your place in North Arlington, which is like less than 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
You know, why would I go farther than these places? Like
Right.
Dingo's Den in Clifton has an open mic on Monday nights that is less than 10 minutes from my house. Like, there's an Elmwood Park open mic on Monday nights, less than 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
And it's like 4 places to get. If you're the first person at Boulevard on a Monday night, you get 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So like if you do all of those shows within 10 minutes of my house, you get like, I don't know, 25 minutes a week.
Right.
And it's like anytime I have new jokes, I get to test them. I never worry about like,
Yeah.
oh, I haven't practiced this enough. It's like, nope. I've already tried it 3 or 4 times.
Right.
It's ready to go by the weekend for a real show.
Yeah.
Whether it's Annabella's, whether it's a comedy club show, whether it's like an indie show in the middle of nowhere that like 200 people show up to, and you're like, who the fuck are you people?
Where'd you
How
come
did
from?
you all know about this?
Yeah. Where does the name, going back to this, but the name Late Night Hump come from?
So we were originally
Like the long sip right before that answer.
For sure. We were originally going to produce a Monday night show at the Nocturnal Muse Gallery in Nyack, New York. They eventually disbanded.
Okay.
Shout out Shelley Luan of the Shelley Luan Gallery. They changed the name of that. And we ended up not doing the show on Wednesday nights, but we were like, oh, what's the name of the show? And it's like, oh, it's Late Night on Hump Days. Like, let's call it Late Night Hump. And then from there, we had the Late Night Hump show in Trenton, and we would start doing improv at those shows because we didn't really get a lot of comics to go out to Trenton because it was so far away from a lot of the comics I knew. And they were like, what's this place? It's a weed place. And they'd look it up, and there was like a time when like the dude who owns the place like hit somebody over the head with a fire extinguisher because they like brought a gun in there or something. So it's like you see stuff and you're just like, well, at least I'm like confident that if anything goes down, like I'll be fine. As long as I'm not getting hit in the head with an extinguisher, you know.
Just don't bring a firearm into the place. Yeah, it seems straightforward enough.
Yeah. I forgot what the question was, but
what is Late Night? Like where does the name come from?
So then, we just started making videos as Late Night Hump. We had an Instagram, and during the pandemic, we started making a lot of sketch comedy videos, and that really got ourselves out there. I think like we have some videos that have been watched thousands of times on our YouTube channel, and that's just where we started funneling everything. We our brand is heavily comedy oriented, and like we do a lot of like talk shows too, podcast stuff. So late night sounds kind of like late night talk shows as well.
Yeah.
So
my old podcast was The Morning Spotlight.
Oh, nice.
Which literally had like nothing to do with the morning. And it wasn't even like morning show themed. It was just kind of like my old, like it started as a LinkedIn show where I would just like post the episodes in the morning. So I was like, we're spotlighting someone in the morning. There you go. You know, so like that's where same kind of like almost same kind of concept, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then also on the acting side, you were in the Madoff.
Yeah,
right?
Madoff, Monster of Wall Street. I started out being cast just as like a generic SEC agent, which like if you watch the 3rd episode, you could see me harassing Bernie Madoff and trying to get information from him.
Yeah.
But then I was in the system for the casting agency, and they told me, hey, you kind of look like young Peter Madoff. Let's use you. And it was very cool. Got to go to the set again, get very up close with the director and stuff, who Joe Berlinger did some of my favorite documentaries like Paradise Lost. I don't know if you've ever watched those documentaries. Those were like a true crime documentary and like legal documentary before all of these ones started happening. And it was like profiling the Memphis 3, I think, or something like that. And they like were accused of satanic killings of boys, and everything pointed to them not doing it, but because they listened to metal music and they listened to what's the band? Oh God.
It's like always Metallica.
Yeah, I think it was Metallica. People were like, they are satanic. They killed these boys. They mutilated these boys, and they were going to be in prison for life. And he made the first documentary, and they weren't released. He made the second documentary, and they weren't released. And now he's gaining momentum in Hollywood and like film festivals because a lot of wealthy people like to go to Sundance and spend their money. Like a lot of wealthy people like to go to the Tribeca Film Festival. They like to go to Cannes and shit like that. And eventually, by the third doc, they were all out. So this man has literally helped exonerate people. And he did a lot of the Ted Bundy stuff as well. He's a very interesting filmmaker. And it was cool because they shot that in Parlay Studios when I was working on it, which is just in Jersey City.
Oh, cool.
So it wasn't far away at all for me. Very easy parking, very nice trip over there, especially midday.
Right. I love parking in Jersey City.
Yeah, and I was very experienced by that point with my reenactment. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Oh, wow. This is a nice callback. The package was actually for someone else.
There you go. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was doing a lot of reenactment stuff in Jersey, especially when I started acting, because like I definitely took a break from it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then during the pandemic, I started getting back into it, and they shoot like all of these like historical reenactment shows about like one I was on was about tobacco and like how tobacco was like a king crop in America, and I was just like a guy in the corner smoking a cigar, and then I was in like the food that built America, like the Dunkin' Donuts episode. And then I was in true crime stuff on The Case with Paul Azan that was on like Discovery ID.
Yeah.
So it's like you start doing these random things and then all of a sudden they're all on TV at the same time. And you're just like, whoa, I wasn't even like important in any of these things. And it's like, it's very cool to like start seeing yourself pop up on things. And like the Madoff thing was cool because people recognized me for the first time. Like people I knew were recognizing me. People I haven't talked to in years were recognizing me for doing that, you know? And I've been doing stand-up for a long time. I've been doing like short films and YouTube videos for a long time. But if you're on the front page of Netflix,